How you doing? I'm Bjorn. Good. I just started rehearsals for a thing on Monday. We're only going to do a few short rehearsals, then record it. It's with a director I worked with at Woodinville Repertory Theater back in the day, Yelmer Anderson, who's actually grew up in Kitsap County, like I did. So we're kind of from the same neck of the woods. And he has his group known as Heart. It's Yelmer's East Side Actors Repertory Theater, and it's doing all public domain stuff, largely as like radio melodrama performance type stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's silly. It's over the top. It's super dramatic, and so of course I'm in. So yeah, that has been fantastic. What about yourself? Yeah, you have. Yep. Yeah, it is. Oh, it looks like it's going to be so cool. I'm so excited to watch it. They're so ambitious, and what's awesome is they figure out ways to pull it off. Oh, well, Jordan, I don't know if you know this, he's actually speaking Latin right now. It's very interesting.
No.
But he said he'd only do it for the first like 2 minutes. So if you missed him speaking Latin, much like our first episode, it's gone forever. Uh, yeah.
I don't know. The whole half of the. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to Dice Jailers. I'm Bjorn.
Hi, I'm still Bjorn, and my mic still works.
We're going to talk Druids.
Yeah, we are.
The nature boy.
And you know what? I'm not going to talk about what I've been doing again because as much as I love to talk about myself, I'm gonna I'm gonna do that.
Love it.
No, I'm looking forward to getting towards people who use nature as a way to create magic. Talk about your thing again though, because it's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. The thing here that I was.
Yes.
Like an phenomenal other thing.
Yeah.
All of that same.
Because they had a long time to work on this one because gestures and everything. So, and also because of quarantine, there were fewer people to say to them, "Are you sure that's doable?"
Yeah.
So,
Pretty much everybody.
yep.
And
It's
now
gonna be
it's.
great.
And yeah. I don't have to.
Excellent.
Actually, file age.
Because hey, just out of sight, out of mind, right? Perfect.
Oh, all about having natural environment back to what.
The one where you feel one with yourself and one with the world around you. I, as you know, am not a big player of spellcasters. I generally lean into the martial classes. They appeal to me a lot more. I well, I mean, yes, though I am playing a wizard right now, and I'm even though I'm only level 2, I'm enjoying it greatly so far. It's a lot of fun.
A cons.
Man, I have less hit points at level 2 than my barbarian had at level 1, okay? This is this is delicate waters for me. But as far as the casters go though, um the druid has actually always been kind of one of my favorites. I mean, okay, yeah, and you know, I was actually looking back over the old 3.5 player's handbook earlier this week just to kind of remind myself where some of these classes came from. Because back, you know, even back to 3.5, the bard used to be a D6 hit die. Like, the bard being a D8's a new thing, and wizards used to be a D4. So you know, me whining about my D6, you know, you get those old school wizard players who look at me like I'm a tank. But the druid was always a D8. Like I look back, the druid was a D8 there, and it's a really cool thing to have that, much like the cleric, where with this full caster class, you get full 9 levels of spells, you get the same number of spell usage as any other caster, but you have hit points. Like you don't have to hide in the back. Like your wizard has to hide in the back or somewhere. They
Unless
can't.
Eldritch Knight.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yes, but druids get to do things a little differently depending on the circle you go with. But you've got
kind of self-sufficient nature
yep,
caster. Can't just on a whole
right, and then of course the quintessential druid ability for 5e, the wild shape,
absolutely.
which there's just so much utility with it, so much fun you can have with it. And what's great with it as compared with something like, say, polymorph, where polymorph is requiring your concentration to stay in that animal form, you just have those hit points as a druid, and it's so multi-purpose. You can turn into a shape that's more useful in combat or scouting, or maybe you just need to get the hell out of there and you just need a few more hit points to survive.
Sometimes you just
Precisely. The one thing I will say I did miss from the Druids when 5e really rolled out, and I was thrilled to see an iteration of this come back in Tasha's, was the Druids used to have an animal companion like the Ranger. Because the group of 3.5 I played in back in the day, played a half elf fighter in that group, which was a lot of fun. And we had a druid in our group who had an animal companion. That animal companion, well, it didn't really do a lot in combat or scouting. It was still this nice little thing to have, and it really added to the overall druid's usefulness. So
buddy right.
yeah, so I'm really happy to see Tasha's has a modified find familiar, at least, where you can do some stuff with it. I mean, it's a little thing, but I love it, and I feel like it's a heavy nod back to the druids of yesteryear.
I mean, there's a lot that we
It really is.
if you were to hit like out the class that like and then counter it with ah
um, I'll hit on the second one first. I don't know if there's anything about druids where I'd say here's why they're not. I mean, I guess to hit on the sour note first, if you're looking for a class that with its spells is going to be able to have like big damage, destructive wrath, you're just looking in the wrong place. Because most druid spells, even the big ones, are going to be more about battlefield control and manipulation. I mean, that's not to say a couple of them can't pack a wall up, but let's be honest.
our druid. tidal wave.
Oh, tsunami.
Yeah,
In a tower, tsunami. And the thing is,
probably in an enclosed place.
but if that wall had held up, you all would have drowned. So, but even truthfully, like the big thing that tsunami does, it pushes the enemies away from you. Like they have to make strength saves and they get pulled away. You're not going to do enough damage to destroy super powerful enemies with that spell, but it gets them the hell out of your way. So if you're really looking to wreck stuff with your magic, I'm going to say look elsewhere. We'll get to those classes at the end of our class guide because they're some of the last ones you get to.
Alphabet.
Yeah, but going to what's great about druids, if you want magic that is truly going to control the battlefield, they're like bards in that aspect. They have so many great control spells. You get a good variety of control, some damage, some support, and some healing. Like because the druid gets healing word, but also at ninth level, it can have true resurrection. Like that is not a cleric specific spell. Now it doesn't have a lot of the other resurrection spells in between. Tasha's for the optional spells did add revivify, but it still doesn't get raised dead. And it used to be that for a druid, if they're going to bring somebody back, it was reincarnation, which was what you coming back as.
Period.
It could be. It could be. But the other thing I love about druids, and again, it is the quintessential druid ability. It is the wild shape. I love wild shape. It's just so cool. Yeah. What about you? Like, what are the parts about druids where you're like, this is what I'm about?
A lot of it.
Oh yeah,
Outland. Take a look at you. Have to be.
sure. Yeah, because as long as that group is about, preserving nature in some way, shape, or form, or is against an adversary that is trying to damage that nature, this druid's going to be like, oh, our goals are aligned. Yeah.
As a class. It's wild shape. Wild shape. It's got to be wild shape.
Wild shape's so
It's
awesome.
so.
Right. And depending on your circle. Right.
And I think that a
Yes.
thing then haven't actually tribes them.
Yep.
It's out and you're like, oh, that's what a giant eagle. Now I'm it. Like, so cool thematically. That's why it's wild shape. Wild shape.
So I feel like I'm going to get a big thing out of the way right now because we talk about these classes, we talk about our favorites and our least favorites of the archetype, and I feel like it's really important to address one of the archetypes and just get it out of the way. And maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I keep coming back to this book almost every time we do one of these.
Okay.
It's in the player's handbook. It's the Circle of the Moon. It's so cool. It's so awesome. If you play a Circle of the Moon druid, if you've never played a druid before, and you play Circle of the Moon, you're going to have a blast.
It's the most
Yeah. Like,
ever drew. Animals.
yeah, you can turn into bigger and stronger stuff than any other druid type. Your strikes are magical once you hit level 6. And when you hit level 10, you can turn into a freaking elemental. You're the only druid that gets to do that. And so when I was looking at these subclasses to go, oh, where's my pump it, where's my dump it, I'm going to. I think I'm going to stick with those. That was good. I like that. but but the Circle of the Moon, it's not me saying it's the quote best, but like you said, it feels the most like a druid to me. And so I instantly wanted to look beyond that for what are the ones I think are really cool and what are the ones that I think lack. Because again,
I also that's the moon.
I mean, it honest a lot, yeah, it can,
If you
right. But I mean,
have
oh, for sure. Like as Circle of the Moon, you were really one of the only druids, if not the only druid, that can truly be the tank for your party. Like if your party doesn't have a tank, once you start getting up there in levels, yeah, like you get high enough in levels and you're going, okay, I'm going to turn into a mammoth. And then when that mammoth runs out of hit points and it gets back to your druidy self, which again is a D8 hit die, so you have an okay amount of hit points, you get 2 wild shapes. So you go, hey, guess what? I'm turning into a mammoth again. You can really just help preserve the longevity of your party through your wild shaping. So yeah.
I just note. Oh nope, there. I haven't been talking loud enough for my mic to. So that's great. So some of my things may have just been. I will move. Sorry about that, audience.
We'll find out. So
Ah,
circle aside, as far as this is the subclass that you just really get into, really enjoy, see a lot of potential. I want you to go first this time.
okay.
Where were
As I
you at?
volume. uh, why we should have teched. We didn't. But
Technology.
anyway, the one that I really like besides Circle of the Moon, I really like Circle Shepherd.
Go on.
Shepherd, it's interesting.
Okay.
It gives you all of the like talking to all of the castings,
Sure.
and it really that feel common. You know what
Yes.
I mean?
Yes.
Like you are the whatever. And I think that's really really important to be like, yeah, I am going to play. Like you already are before you out on.
Well,
Um,
and that really leans into a lot of like the Outlander background that you've
does
been talking about because I think the Outlander background, when used well, is awesome. And honestly, I don't think it lends itself well to every class. There's some classes I where
no,
I
a lot of
it's
people.
because they want to be edge lords, man, and it's if you're playing a barbarian or a druid or a ranger and you take that outlander background, I mean that's just free roleplay material right
Pretty
there.
much. But like, as you said, it's definitely one of the ones that really lends into Outlander.
Sure.
Now, for your subclass that doesn't really do it for you,
Okay.
where are we at, bud?
We'll get there. We'll get there. Because even though I was big on the moon there actually are two subclasses that are in neck and neck contention for ones I love.
Oh, we're getting a twofer from you.
You are.
Okay.
I again I my druid knowledge was very limited before we went into this. I have played a druid in a little like 3-shot kind of game, and one of the ones that the one I chose is one of the ones I really like. But there are two that stand out to me as just awesome for role play potential and just a different way of being about the druid. And one of them is the Circle of the Stars,
Okay.
which I was really big into. Long story short, in that game, I had been playing a cleric that died, and it was this very Scandinavian dwarf, Viking mythology kind of based dude.
What
And
a
so my
youth
idea
playing
was,
a dwarf?
I
Never.
know, right? Well, then my druid was also a dwarf who I had be of the same clan. And the way I brought him into the story was like he was reading the stars, saw that another star illuminated, and he knew his kinsman had died and gone to
Oh,
Valhalla. And so now he was coming to assist his allies.
that's pretty cool.
But but Circle the Stars I like because it gives you something different with your wild shape. Like there are all those different circles of the land, which I'm never gonna just poop on circles of the land. Those are really cool. And if you talk to your DM before a campaign and kind of find out what the setting is going to be, you can make your druid of that setting and make it their protector of the area. Instant story hook.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
it's great, and you'll have spells that'll really help out the party, and they'll love you. But if you're not Circle of the Moon, your wild shape gets forgotten a lot because you can't turn into as big of stuff. And so
Yeah.
having this combat form you turn into and being able to, as your bonus action, cast these radiant blasts of energy, and then also, oh, I don't know, getting guiding bolt for a free spell
Yeah.
that you can cast a number of times
You love
up to
guiding
your,
bolts so
oh,
much.
it's a great spell. I mean, remember your proficiency mod. You can cast it that many times per day. Let me tell you, being able to throw a guiding bolt out there when you're this, level 2 druid without sacrificing any of your actual spell slots is huge. So you're getting a new use out of wild shape and you're maximizing spell slots. I just think there's a lot of fun with
My
that.
my big question for you with guiding bolt.
Yeah,
Where are you aiming that guiding bolt?
up the butt, man. I will
Thank you.
never I
That's
will
all I
never
needed.
question Ashley Johnson. Like
That's all I needed. End of stream.
yeah,
That's all we've got. We just needed a
what
guiding bolt up
what
the butt
yeah,
reference.
what Ashley Johnson says goes. I don't make the rules, folks. But the other one that I love, and I didn't think I was going to like it until I really read how it worked, and I read the uh, the idea behind the subclass was the circle of the spores.
Mm-hmm.
And my initial issue when I was thinking about it was, why would a druid do anything involving undeath? That seems the antithesis of the druid to me. And then reading about how it's like, well, like mushrooms grow out of dead stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like dead stuff creates new things. And so the idea that undeath
Circle of
could
life, baby.
temporarily, be a tool in the grand scheme of life, it's it's just a really different and really cool way you can play a druid. Now, a Circle of the Spores druid would never be a follower of Orcus per se, because it even says the idea of replacing life with undeath they're against, because that's disrupting the circle of life and the balance of everything. But it's also one where you get another different use of the wild shape, where you can have your spores act in various ways to augment your character. And I really really like that, where you're going, oh hey, this ability, um, just so you're not looking at the circle of the moon and wondering what could have been, we're going to give you something different with it. And so that one really spoke to me as one I can see myself playing, because it's a different type of character. Like the idea of, as your allies are learning from you, where you're just saying, you're like, death is a part of life, and fungi grow from the dead. So if I can raise this dead body, which has no more purpose, it's an empty husk, the soul is gone, but I can move it elsewhere and it can assist us before I let it lie down and fertilize some ground or whatever. You could have this really, really uh, interesting character. And not that you can't do it with all druids, but I feel like that's one you can really get like this cool sort of chaotic good eco terrorist kind
Yeah.
of druid, which I love that shit,
That's
man.
because you love poison ivy.
I do. Poison Ivy is not a villain. Poison Ivy is a hero. I love
I
Poison
mean,
Ivy.
there are 20 million. We could do like 8 episodes on just how poison ivy's not a villain, but
Poison Ivy's so good, so good. But yeah, like honestly, like Poison Ivy and her thralls are kind of what occurred to me. It's not exactly the same as what like the Circle of the Spores
yeah,
does, but it kind of clicked with me where I'm like, oh man, this would be this really cool. Like if you wanted to go, Um, not so much I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees style druid, but if you want to be more the poison ivy of like, hey, the trees fight back, dude. Um, it's a great one.
I now need us to do like at least like a one shot of just a full druid party
Hell
and
yeah. I,
just to see those two kinds of druids interact.
yeah, you got to have a Lorax and a poison ivy.
Just
Oh,
I am the druid, I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees, and then oh these trees about to smack back.
yep. And then lastly, just one of the little abilities I love about Circle of the Spores, because I love any archetype where there's an ability you get that sort of transforms you in some
Right.
way, or an ability where it's like, oh, this changes the game. Going all the way back to our barbarians, part of why I like the Berserker,
Mm-hmm.
level 14 retaliation. You hit me,
Yeah.
I hit you. I'm gonna use my reaction, I'm gonna hit you back. So all of a sudden, you're playing this character no one wants to hit. Well, what I love is the level 14 ability for the Circle of the Spores. Not only do you get a bunch of sweet, sweet immunities,
Yeah.
if you're hit by a crit, it's a normal hit for you.
Yep.
So anything that says on a crit, you get to ignore all that stuff because of the way your body's been transformed. And that's cool. And it
Tough.
also gives you a little more of that tanky ability, similar to like the Circle of the Moon, but not exactly the
Yeah,
same.
at level 14, Circle of Spores, you become the mushroom,
Yeah,
which is
like
cool because it does give you that whole like idea of like I am a mushroom colony, and like mushrooms that there's not really like one part of the shroom that is in charge, unlike other plants where like if you snip off the certain section of the bud, like it's going to die no matter what, even if you cut off just like this particular tiny part. With a mushroom, yeah, you can kind of hack away, and as long as most of it's still there, it'll grow back eventually.
yeah, and also like talking about role play potential. If you're playing in a campaign that you know will go to level 14 or above,
Yeah.
it has to. Well, I mean, I guess not necessarily. I say that only because that's clearly the ability where the spores have really influenced your body, so you could
Mm-hmm.
describe this physical change. You could have a character that going into the campaign plans to die at the end of it because that's part of the circle of life, and they're feeding these spores and these spores are helping protect, and they're actually looking forward to this idea of fertilizing the land and fueling these spores forever as this fungi grows into like this protector. Like you could have this.
And then eventually they just become the fungi.
Yeah, you could have a different self-sacrificing character where it's not this either totally emo thing or this overly noble thing. It
Yeah.
can be just this is the circle of life, and this
Just
is
the like very
this
much
is
this is how it is.
yeah, this is part of my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
which anything that fuels role play in the archetype itself,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get excited about. And these two may not be the best mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both good. Again, like you said, I don't think there's a druid that's bad
No, there
mechanically,
really isn't.
but I like the role play options here.
See, that actually it's all of that is interesting because the circle of spores is actually the druid circle that I was like, I like this one the least.
Ooh,
And
I
and
want to hear why.
most of the reasons why is because of the new subclass of the circle of wildfire,
Yeah,
and how like all of that all of that circle of life stuff is in the circle of wildfire,
sure.
and in my opinion is more interesting because rather than it being the slow steady process of circle of spores,
Right.
circle of wildfire is this very quick dramatic, this is death, this is life, this is death, this is life, constantly. And I
Yeah, yeah.
just feel like if going for something like that, especially with campaigns that like most campaigns don't last a long time,
No,
and so you're not able to do all of that stuff that you love about the circle of spores.
yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I don't like it, is just because of how time consuming all of the cool things are, at least thematically.
Just
And so
just
that's
funny
why
about that.
it's one of the
Go,
ones that like I don't really want to play it.
See, do you know what's hilarious about that?
That mushrooms aren't slow.
Well, I mean, they can be. Depends on your digestive system. But the that's right. These are the jokes. The one that I just cannot get with is the Circle of Wildfire.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I was reading it, and it's doing the whole, oh, how like there are these natural fires that'll happen because they burn stuff away for like the new growth and all that. As I read the entry on it, what it said to me was, you came up with the violent druid and went, oh shit, we got to justify this somehow. I'm sorry. Yeah, you get a couple other spells that can do some damage, and you get your little flicker minion. You get your little matchstick
I love
homeboy.
that little flicker minion idea.
I mean,
And mostly just because it's so different than other druids.
I hear that, but as I read through it, you remember how I said way back where I'm like, hey, if you're really looking for that caster class that's going to just be able to bring some violence and whatnot, it feels like they tried to do this here and just to me failed. Like I look at it and I go, this was an attempt to be the light cleric equivalent for a druid, because with for the light cleric they went, hey, cleric with a fireball, and we all went, awesome. And for this one, they're like, okay, Circle of Wildfire, and they didn't even have the balls to give it Fireball,
No,
which
just flaming sphere. But
which
it does also get revivified.
eh, because fire brings you back to life because everyone's a phoenix now.
It's because of that whole wildfire from death comes life thing.
Well, per Tasha's, all druids can have revivify now, though.
That is true.
Which
I mean, but per Tasha's, we have the Circle of Wildfire to begin with.
I know, which is one of my beats with Tasha's. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I personally can't get behind it at all because it just feels the most anti-druid to me. Like, yes, I get the notion of, burning things away so new things can grow, but there's also a level of like violence against nature where I'm going, this doesn't feel like a druid to me, guy.
See, and to me, I don't see that, and I think it might be from especially with this last year, uh all of the learning I've done about controlled burns
Oh
and
no,
about the tradition of like ritually burning things away to make things regrow,
oh no,
and
yeah.
all of
Don't
the
don't get me
learning
wrong.
yeah,
That's legit stuff.
all of that I've read over, that's what makes me want to play this Wildfire Druid so much, because I'm like, oh, I see it, I understand it, is fresh in my mind, and I want to do this. Also, I'm a destructive little goblin.
Yes, which is why you should just play a sorcerer and be done with it.
I've done that like 4 times.
But it was fun, wasn't it?
You're not wrong. Hell, I'll
So
probably
yeah,
do it again soon. But
exactly. So that's the one I just have a hard time getting on board with. So it's funny that you were like, "Oh, I'm not so big into the spores." I was like, "Oh, do not worry, my friend, because this one that you were just talking about that you think does it better than the spores, I can't stand. I can't get behind." Um,
but
it's
I do love with druids that like they're unlike some of the other classes that we'll talk about. There isn't really a bad subclass.
no, I think as long as you lean into the ideals behind the druid of protecting nature, of all of that, I think no matter which one you play, you can have a good time. I think it's important if you're going to play. I mean, I think this is true with any class, but I think really with the druid in particular, look long and hard at everything that every subclass gets,
Yeah.
because make sure that if there's, because I'll say this, if there's a subclass that gets an ability where if you look at it and you're going, ooh, if I didn't get to use that, I'd be real bummed. And that's probably the subclass you should go with. If you went in wanting to play a druid, I think you could find a way to make just about any of them work for you.
Yeah. Although I would be remiss if we did not, because we just kind of said how cool Wild Shape is, but we
Yeah.
never really got into why Wild Shape is so cool, except in like quick glossing over things. So I think we should just talk for a bit on how freaking dope Wild Shape is.
Yeah, it's a huge utility. If you can think of so many various ways to use it.
Yep.
Let's say there's the standard. Oh, there's a rickety bridge. How are we going to cross it? You're worried about overall weight of your party.
I
Even at
turn into a mouse.
exactly. So okay, now I'm a mouse in the pocket of one of my allies. I'm going to walk across that way. Perfect. When you get to high enough levels where you can turn into something that flies, you just go, I fly across, yo.
I turn into a giant owl, jump on my back.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's just so much that you can do with it. And even if you're not playing Circle of the Moon, which
Mhm.
anyone who talks about, combat wild shape, they're gonna talk about how great it is, partially because you transform as a bonus action
Yeah.
instead of as an action, which means, oh, we're in combat and I'm in my normal, whatever
Yeah.
whatever
You get
race
you
you
get
chose.
surprised. I'm a wolf and I bite you now.
Exactly, which is great.
Which
But
cool,
if
fine, fun enough.
yeah, so the only thing to know if you're playing one of the other druid types, if you're going to turn into an animal with your wild shape, it's going to cost you your action,
Yep.
which that is what it is.
It's
It's
one turn.
exactly and I think it's also important to look at what any of those creatures can do that you're going to turn into. Find out if they have things they can do as a bonus action.
Mhm.
Find out ways that they can uh, assist allies. But let's face it, even if you're a Circle of the Land, which the big bonuses there are you get some extra spells that are potentially really cool, and a lot of them come down to what kind of campaign you're playing.
Absolutely.
Because let's face it, if you decided your Circle of the Land was going to be Underdark, but you're playing Descent into Avernus, you're not going to get you're not going to get the utility from a lot of those spells.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play Circle of the Land, talk to your DM
Yes.
and just find out what.
Where your campaign's gonna be.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
get you don't have to have the best spells for all of it, but shoot, if you're going to play Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which epic dungeon crawl going up to level 20, you're all underground. Those Underdark spells are all
Yeah.
of a sudden way more
And
useful.
and like if you're and that's not to say like Circle of Land, you don't need to pick exactly the same terrain that you're going to be in, but you're gonna want to pick one that's similar.
Yeah,
So like
at least be a neighbor.
yeah, like if you're playing a campaign that's like if you're playing Icewind Dale, do not pick desert.
No,
Like
like it's not going to help. But
just like
like honestly, for that, I'd be
yeah,
like, oh, cool, I can go grassland because there probably is grass somewhere under that snow.
eventually
Yeah, mountain, hill. Like there are some great choices
just
there.
don't pick desert.
No,
You're going to think that it will be funny and fun, and it will for like half a session,
yeah,
and then
and
you'll get grumpy.
I think too with druids, part of what makes the wild shape cool is there are certain classes that run on one stat. I'm looking at you, wizard.
Yep.
Like, let's face it, if you're playing a wizard, you run on intelligence. Sure,
Intelligence, and out of combat you run on charisma.
I dumped charisma with my wizard.
Well, that's a choice.
Yeah, I dumped that crap.
But we're not
He's
talking about wizards.
no, but but for a druid, you would often think, okay, well, obviously I got to have wisdom for my spells,
Mhm.
but then you might think I should probably have some dex or okay, con, well, maybe strength for weapons. I'm like, no. You don't need a lot of that because here's the great thing. When you wild shape, your dex and strength
See,
become these other things.
I would counterpoint on that where it's not that I would not say where the dex or your strength or your con doesn't matter because you wild shape.
Well, your con always matters. Your con always matters.
No, you're
Con
just
is
afraid
not a dump stat, Jordan.
you're just afraid of being squishy.
Con is not a dump stat.
You are just afraid of being fragile, my friend.
I'm just waiting for your first character that you wheel out onto the battlefield that's in the goddamn Iron Lung. You're gonna make an Iron Lung artificer, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Do it.
But like with druids, I think the great thing, and druids I think are in the same realm as for this with rangers and paladins, is that your your non-casting stat, like your casting stat, obviously it's going to be your best, like
Make
your
it
main
20 as soon as you
stat,
can.
like bah. But like with classes like with rangers, with paladins, I'd also throw clerics in there, as that like besides your casting stat, the where you drop your other stats, it's not as necessary. I mean, ranger, you're gonna want a dex, but like you can drop those other ones in various different places to really inform your character's backstory, and I think the druid can do it the best.
Oh, sure, sure. And I think we're actually hitting on the same thing. And I don't know that I phrased it well. Where I think that some of those other stats, when I'm saying they're just sort of not as important, it gives you more flexibility in that, like the idea of if you're playing a barbarian, you've got to have strength, you've got to have constitution. If you're playing a paladin, you've got to have strength, you've got to have charisma. I realize there are Dexy paladins. I know, don't at me. I will never play a
No,
Dexy paladin.
do it,
I
please do
want
it.
paladins belong in
Just
plate armor.
everyone, just spam our page with just ideas for con dump stat characters that work, just to bother Bjorn,
And
please.
Dexy paladins, cool. You can play your Dexy paladin. And here's the thing: if you play your Dexy paladin, you know who your biggest cheerleader is going to be? This guy. I'm just saying I would never do it because I just have certain things I want in certain classes. But like you said with the druid, I can think of ways that they work differently. I know for me, I don't want a really high dex stat as a druid. And my reason is because I know I want my eventual armor to be scale mail. And
Okay.
it's a little thing. It's a very little thing, but this is not a requirement in 5e. And I don't I don't require it of my players, but I encourage it. I'm big on the whole druids won't use metal.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing a druid, my shield, it's either made of wood or it's the carapace of like an umber hulk or
See,
something.
the way I like to do that as a DM is not druids won't use metal, but druids won't touch metal. So that like the scimitar's still in play because the handle's like wrapped in leather.
Interesting.
That's that's the way that like I like to do it, because oh shit, that's a thing we didn't talk about at all in like the mythos of druid,
Oh yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
how there's this whole thing with druids, and it was way bigger in past editions, where like
Yes.
druids, you cannot use metal
Yep.
in the
You could
class.
not use metal weapons. You could not wear metal armor. Like it had to specifically be your shield had to be made of wood or had
Yep.
to be made from a natural substance.
And like your armor had to be like iron bark if it was going to be the equivalent of a metal armor.
Yeah.
Fifth edition has kind of done away with that.
But that's the reason why I love the scale mail though, because that was one of the things that they would allow is scale mail because they're saying it could be made of the scales of various hard scaled creatures.
Which that is a cool like little bit of flavor into
Yeah.
it.
Because I'm like, oh no, no. If I'm playing a druid and I can get me some dragon scale mail, oh, I'm all about that.
So yeah, I'm
But
just throwing it out there. Circle of the Shepherd, Archer, Druid.
it could work.
Beautiful.
Here's what I'll throw out there. You know how you're saying the idea of a druid who won't even touch metal?
Mm-hmm.
You could have, and again, please don't do this to the point where you're annoying your
Oh
other
gods, yeah.
players.
No.
Like, if never pick a character trait that's going to annoy other people at the table if you can help it. It's a collaborative game, and the biggest thing is it's a game. But you could have something really interesting where your druid is never willing to touch coins themselves because they're made of metal, and thus never go shopping alone.
That. Oh gods, I didn't even think about money. And oh
But
gods,
it's a little thing, right?
I
So
feel
what
like
does
I
that
need to
mean?
change all of my druids now.
You have to make friends with someone in the adventuring party so that they're always willing to go shopping with you and will handle the money and won't mind looking like you're hired help.
Oh my god. Oh, I have to. That would have changed so many things about the druid that I played in our game
I
if I
know
had thought about that.
it's a little thing,
Oh
and so
man.
here's another freebie for y'all with druids. And I know I'm not the first person to say this, but if you want to have some real fun with a druid, as far as if you're like, where do I put my dump stat? Because I honestly believe every character is more fun if you have a dump stat. I truly believe that, because not like I won't say no one is good at everything. You meet those folks every now and then who just seem to be good at everything. Yeah, well, we'll let you think that. We'll let you
Yup.
think that.
Let me have this. This is half my show. Let me have this.
For you, reality is a dump stat, but no, a great dump stat for druids is your intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
because wisdom is so much based on like what you've experienced as opposed to like what you've learned and read. I'm like, man, dump that intelligence, make it you don't know crap about religion or history,
Mm-hmm.
those things. What do you care? Like your
The
your
only thing that
survival's
sucks is that
great.
like I do hate that nature is intelligence based in fifth edition,
It
and
bothers me, it
that's
bothers me.
it's a whole thing that we could get into because you could easily know nature without like brain knowledge, and it's why I encourage DMs to use survival more interchangeably with nature because
Which is the thing I do.
yeah,
To me, the idea of nature is being able to identify the types of birds because you read them in a book, as
yep,
opposed to um, survival is knowing which kind of berries and roots you can eat because they're not poisonous. I don't think that's a nature check.
as well
Like,
as which birds are tasty.
yep. The answer, most of them.
That is true.
Most of them. Birds are good eating.
Yep.
Birds are good eating.
They're also great to look at. They're fun to hear sing, but they're also tasty.
They are. They are. And to give a plug to a local business, if you like fried chicken, Triangle in Fremont,
Yup.
best damn fried chicken around.
Yup.
Like I don't care who you are. I will put theirs up against anywhere else.
I just realized we we've done this episode talking about druids, who like a lot of people play druids as like vegetarian, vegan,
We're talking about
and
eating
we'd be like,
animals.
nope, fried chicken, delicious.
Here's the thing, I'm hungry. So
Me too, my dude.
yeah,
Why do we do the show at dinner?
I don't know, man. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Oh man.
But yeah, but no, like druids are they're cool. Like I don't care. I don't care what group you're in. If it doesn't have a druid, it can be enhanced by having a druid in it.
I feel like I have yet to see a person play a druid and not enjoy it in D&D 5th edition. I
Yeah,
will
no,
say I've
it's
seen people playing Pathfinder 2 and
yep,
not enjoying the druids that much, but that's a whole thing on Pathfinder 2 that eventually I do want to do an episode on
heck yeah,
because it is a lovely fun system that has like a few really cool ideas, and then they ended up making a lot of mistakes in trying to make those cool ideas. As
yeah,
much as I love Pathfinder as a system and Paizo as a company, like they're you tried a lot of things and some of them worked and a lot of them didn't.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, like, and one of the other things that's cool about druids, it's the same thing that we talk about with clerics. You prepare your spells. So
yeah,
whenever you hit those odd numbered levels where you get a new tier of spells, you have access to all of them. It's not like some other classes where you just have to pick specific spells, which is great. It can run into the frustration of you encounter an obstacle and you have to say to your allies, I can't help with that today.
but I could do it tomorrow.
Exactly. And if you know sort of the environment you're going into, you could really build your spell list for that day around what's going to happen. That said, DMs, druids can only change their spells on a long rest.
Yep.
So if you want to F the party a bit,
Don't you dare give them this suggestion.
I'm gonna say it. Be careful about this because this can backfire and it can piss off your druid. You create a scenario where they're forced to go longer than they would be able to, but you have like magical means to give them benefits of long rests and avoid exhaustion. If you do that,
giving them a proper long rest.
that's cool in small snippets. But if you go too far where the druid isn't getting to change their spells at all, you're now kind of really, hindering what that class can be. And I warn for that, particularly if they're not, again, our good friend, the Circle of the Moon. If I'm playing Circle of the Moon and you're going, ha ha ha, I'm gonna do this thing where you don't get your long rest. I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna turn into stuff that'll eat your enemies. So what do I care?
I'm a bear.
Yes. So.
Oh, that was one thing. Back when we were on Wild Shape before we got off onto this tangent, which I do love, is with Wild Shape. My favorite thing with Wild Shape that people don't talk about enough is its usefulness outside of combat. Like, Wild Shape is so fun outside of combat. Like, I had a player once that was playing a druid, and they had to do this infiltration, this investigation, and it was a traveling circus.
Yep.
Because I needed that to happen.
Of course.
I always love to put festivals in my games, and the villains happen to be the traveling circus, which I know is a trope, but
whatever, it's fun. Funny. And tropes are sometimes good for a reason.
And so what she did, she turned into a mouse to then just sneak quick into the tent, scope around, but as a mouse, she managed to get caught, which is impressive.
It really is. You have to do that on purpose.
It wasn't exactly a combat, but she then shifted from a mouse into a bear, and then in order to deal with the guard, she just sat on him.
That's perfect.
It's technically not combat,
but it's also hilarious.
She technically out of combat, she incapacitated a guard by just turning into a bear and sitting on him,
which is perfect.
And it's the shenanigans like that people don't often catch when they're thinking about making their character, and it's why I have a big push for play a druid.
They're so fantastic. And honestly,
you just turn into a cat and chill out with your party members, just I'm a cat now.
Yeah, it's great. Also the uses of Wild Shape. If there is a MacGuffin you need to get to that is in some very precarious location, once you've hit a high enough level that you can turn into something that can fly, awesome. Turn into a hummingbird, fly up there, land, turn back into yourself, grab it, throw the MacGuffin to a party member, turn back into a hummingbird, fly back. There are unique situations.
You can turn into the thing that Bjorn hates most, which is why I will pause before saying this so Bjorn can stop hearing me for a moment. You can turn into a spider. And
not my game, you can't. Anywhere. Sure can't. Not my game. You sure can't. Druids can't turn into those at all. Nope. Doesn't happen. But, you know why? Because they don't exist in my world.
In a game where Bjorn isn't the DM, which it is always important to be aware of, the people you're playing with and what things that they absolutely hate, because you don't want to become that and annoy that person or cause some kind of or cause a traumatic memory coming back up. You want to be good to your player.
It's jokes aside, phobias are real. If you know somebody in your group has a phobia, don't don't ever prey on that because you think it'll be funny. Because I can guarantee you,
It is not.
it will not be funny. And even if they force a laugh at the table, they will have choice words about you when the
Absolutely.
session is over. So like just don't like yeah,
But
I have a phobia of arachnids. I refer to them like I won't say the S word. I just refer to them as ickies or arachnids, and that's it. Because I don't like them, and that's me. So if someone's like, I'm gonna turn to a spot, I'm like, you sure as hell aren't. But you turn into a beetle that can crawl up the wall and along the ceiling. It's real weird, but it works.
but yeah, so like if you're if you're not in a game with Bjorn, like you can turn into one of those things,
You can,
and
and
they're very helpful for when you can't fly.
exactly. Yeah. Like yeah, things that have those, abilities to walk along walls and ceilings and stuff.
Turn into
It's
an iguana.
or a gecko.
Ooh, geckos are dope.
Geckos are great because then if you get grabbed by the tail, you can detach it.
That is true. I mean, there isn't really a stat for it in D&D, but it scientifically makes sense and
Exactly.
biologically makes sense. So,
Yeah.
your DM will
And
probably let you do it.
and I will say, if you want to have some of those scientific biological things that you really want to add into some of your wild shapes, talk to your DM about it before you gotcha them with it. Because here's why. You could end up being correct, and your DM will end up going, okay, I'll let it go. Sure, you detach your tail and get away. And if you gotcha them on it, here's the thing. This is the one downside to wild shape, because there's only one. Most things you wild shape into have less than 100 hit points. And here's why that's important.
Yep.
There's this little spell called Power Word Kill, and it's been ruled that if you are wild shaped and you get hit by Power Word Kill, and the form you're in has less than 100 hit points,
You're
it
still
does
dead.
not revert you back to your druid form. You die.
Yeah. That is I call it power word fuck you.
Yep.
Um
And honestly, most DMs who are cool won't do that to you unless it's like a big bad who
yeah.
totally would do it. They won't do it indiscriminately. But I'll tell you what, if you happen to have all this knowledge of various, creatures, biology and whatnot, because
Maybe you're you know you're studying zoology, which if
exactly.
you are, super dope. We
Yeah.
should talk cuz animals are awesome and I love
Props to
them.
you. Like that's
But
great. Like but yeah, if you have all this zoological knowledge, don't flex on your DM by having more knowledge about a specific thing with them unless it is adding to the story in a way to make it cool. Because if you ever flex on your DM in a way to go, haha, gotcha,
nope,
they're just gonna make a note.
don't do
Like
that. Never do
nothing,
that.
yeah, nothing should scare you more than if you have a moment where you're like, haha, gotcha to your DM, and they go, uh-huh, and you watch them make a note somewhere
Yep.
because they just wrote down how they're gonna kill you.
They absolutely did. They
Yeah, that's the
absolutely
peek
got
behind the
down
curtain
just
right
like
there.
and murder this motherfucker next week.
Yep. And I know how I'm going to do it, and they'll have no counter for it. So, yeah. But honestly, like I said, but going on to that, if you do have the zoological knowledge, talk to your DM about ways that it could be worthwhile. Again, the whole hey, if I wild shape into a gecko and it's my tail that gets grabbed, can I just attach it and run away? Because they can do that. And if your DM goes, yeah, I'd allow that. Like those are things that are worthwhile. Or like I think it's dumb that as far as how it's written, cats don't have dark vision.
It's so dumb.
I
I'm
have a
so
cat.
glad you brought it up.
I have a cat. I almost I have a cat. I live with a cat. Like Cleo,
That is true.
Cleo's awesome, and she's her own individual. Cleo has dark vision. I know because she walks around in the dark without problems. Cats should have dark vision. So things like that. You could talk to your DM and be like, man, if I turn into a cat, can I friggin' have dark vision because it's a friggin' cat? That's fine.
Also, I do love that I have only seen your cat through video.
That's true. You've never seen that cat in person. That's
No,
right.
I've been over to your house so many times. I mean, pre-COVID, but
Yep,
so
yep,
many times. I've never seen that cat. I've only seen of that cat.
yep, yep.
But
Oh,
oh, good gods, look at the time. Uh,
oh yeah.
we got we got to hand some rambling. Shout out to Hannibal Burris. Uh, we got to rambling and we got to time. So thank you so much for
Yeah, thank
going on
y'all.
this ride with us. I hope you
Play a druid.
yeah, I really hope you play a druid. Druids are fun. Uh they're they're one of the best classes in
It was
5th edition.
hard coming up with stuff I didn't like. Like I even had to, I won't lie, I had to grasp at straws for the Circle of Wildfire as far as how I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like all I could go on was it just feels a little too destructive for me, but
Uh,
it's still cool.
but yeah. But thank you all for watching. Uh Remember to if you are tuning in for maybe the first time, check back on our YouTube page
Please do.
and see all of our past episodes except the mythical first episode, which will only live in the hearts and minds of like 6 people. Uh,
Yeah, it was
those of
so
us,
good. It
those
was
that
the
were here with
best.
us in the beginning. Uh, Please, you know, talk at us and give us your weird ass builds on our Facebook page for Dice Jailers.
Yep, yep,
Uh,
yep.
because
If there's a topic you want to hear us talk about, or you want to make us talk about, we don't know if
yeah.
you're going to listen or watch it on. Kick it at us. We're looking for ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Come back next week when we talk about fighters. That's going to be fun.
Oh, Fighters is gonna be fun. Fighters, that's gonna be an episode we're gonna go over time on for sure.
Oh,
Because
easy.
fighters are way better than they've been in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, not so that we don't drag on into the time where I need to get some freaking food before doing my other things in the night.
Yep.
Bjorn,
Yep.
what do we always say?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.